Hey everyone, Sam Quinton with Sinopa Publishing right here in Frankfort, Kentucky. I have a video I wanted to make. I'm going to do this right off the top of my head and just say what I'm thinking. And maybe you'll find this interesting. And if you do, please do like it and share it around. So, what I want to talk about is kind of a response to some things I've seen specifically today. And this is July 8th, 2026. But some things I saw today on my social media feeds. All right. And it wasn't just on X. I was seeing comments on YouTube videos I was looking at. I was seeing people talking back and forth about different experiences with comics that they'd backed on crowdfunding campaigns that never come in, things like this. And to be clear, as I've said in my previous videos, I think that the normal result of crowdfunding is that backers fulfill their obligations to their the creators rather fulfill their obligations to their backers. Now, while the platforms themselves all say, hey, pledging isn't buying, there's no guarantee for delivery, that's a CYA cover your ass kind of comment from the platform. In my opinion and my position is that if you are running a crowdfunding campaign, you, the creator, have an obligation to fulfill those obligations. We have certainly made a point here with my company, Sinopa. We have fulfilled the backer obligations for every single campaign we've ever run, and we've been running campaigns since 2017. Every single one that was successful, I guess I should say. We've had a few campaigns that didn't fund. To that end, there's been a lot of traffic on my feeds today about campaigns that haven't funded yet, and then one particular one. And again, I'm not picking on anyone individually, so I'm not going to name anything. It's not a campaign I pledged to, so I don't really have a dog in this fight. But the conversation on this I found it intriguing. Apparently, the campaign's a couple of years late for a comic. My understanding is it's not a graphic novel or anything, just a regular floppy. So a couple of years late is kind of odd for me to contemplate. If you reached your funding goal, you know what I mean. So the conversation I saw on this was that the person's now the creator is now having a problem with fulfillment because postage rates have increased. And postage rates do increase every year. You kind of need to look at that as a given, right? That something is going to happen. And there's not a real good way that I found yet to identify exactly what those costs are going to be. So I usually look at what the proposed percentage increases are for the U.S. Postal Service. And then I look at what my cost calculations are for my most expensive parts in the United States, figure out what it's going to be, and I round up to the nearest dollar, right? So, for example, if something's going to cost like $7.63, I'm going to round it up to $8, right? Now, when you look at the platform costs and everything, you're going to say, okay, it's going to be that $8, or we'll go back a little bit, that $7.63, right, plus the 10% charge. Then all of a sudden it's like $8.37 or whatever that comes out to be, right? And so at that point I'm rounding up to $9. And that way I have enough to make sure that I'm covering that postage costs, right? Now, keep in mind that postage isn't the entirety of that cost calculus. So that figure is usually going to be including like the cost for packaging and tape and all that kind of stuff. Just depending on what service you're using, what your weights are, and things of that nature. Now with the USPS, pretty soon anything under a pound is all going to weigh the same. Okay, so that's going to simplify my cost calculations. I think pretty much across the board, but we're still going to see some regional variation. Is what I would expect. So I would make sure that you identify where it's most expensive for you to ship, particularly in the United States. So, for example, for me, the most expensive places I ship to are California and Hawaii. Alaska is not even in the top 4, which is kind of weird considering I live in Kentucky. Actually, it costs me more to ship to California than it does Puerto Rico. So, wild, right? But the argument that I was seeing online, getting back on track a little bit, was that, hey, the person is saying that they're having trouble affording the shipping costs. I could see how that would happen. I don't have a whole lot of sympathy for that. I think that if you're running a couple of years late, your first obligation is definitely to make those backers whole, and then you can recover the cash that you might be out of pocket through subsequent sales. I think that's a big thing. But one of the comments that I saw pretty prominently was from Vicky. Hi, Vicky. I'll tag you in this video. And Vicky had put forth that a good way to solve this problem is to have the book done ahead of time, so that you can very rapidly fulfill and not be subject to the vagaries of postage and shipping increases. And that's not a verbatim quote. That's just my take on what she was arguing. So, Vicky, if I'm wrong about what you meant, just go ahead and correct me in the comments below. She got a good point. I do wish that I myself could have every book done before a campaign starts. That's just not always possible. In fact, we rarely are able to do that. But when possible, we certainly do. There's a lot of expenses that go into making a comic. And there are some of those that are self-inflicted, right? So, for example, I myself cannot draw at all, much less well enough to produce a high-quality comic. And I definitely want to make sure that my company is known for high-quality work. So you get things like 47 Furious Tales. You get things like Tibby and Her Time-Traveling Psychedelic Mushrooms. You get things like Reign of Ages, Necroholic by Brian Lee, with these distinct, consistent art styles that are very, very true to the title in question, and things that are, I would like to think, are very high-quality production. So let's get to something that is owned by me specifically, right? So obviously Brian Lee owns Necroholic, and we published that for him. Reign of Ages is co-owned currently by myself and Nick, although Nick is going to be transferring that to me here pretty soon. And then, but I myself own 47 Furious Tales, and I myself own Tibby and Her Time-Traveling Psychedelic Mushrooms. So one of the things that is really huge on the expense on that is the art, okay? The art costs for interior pages is pretty high, okay? Now, I am not lamenting that. I want the people who work with me to be well paid. I feel that people who are being well paid in the circumstances of the professionals I work with, being well paid puts them in a position where they can afford to work for me and focus on the work they're doing for me. And they have been consistently producing outstanding work as a consequence of that. So when I tell you that the interior art for Tibby and Her Time-Traveling Psychedelic Mushrooms is going to, between the art and the color and the lettering and everything, is going to be a little over $10,000, I mean it, right? And so we raise a lot of money, of course, ahead of time through sales. Sales of prints and sales of comics that shows and all this kind of thing. We roll that back into our production. But that said, even as we come up when we're getting ready to do Tibby and Her Time-Traveling Psychedelic Mushrooms issue 2, we are probably looking at a $10,000 goal just to finish the book and get those Kickstarter copies printed and released to everybody. So Vicky's argument is very, very good in that if you can get it done ahead of time, definitely do, because it'll expedite things. But if you're in circumstances like I am with Tibby, and you have to fund like half of the book, right? And so maybe you need to do, because we've already got covers, those have already been paid for from previous sales. We're going to have to fund probably half of the art, and then of course the press run. So half of the interior art remaining is going to be about $5,000, something like that. And then the press run on that we're going to run is probably going to be, probably another 5,000 in and of itself. And then, of course, shipping. And then shipping will probably be probably, with the new postage rates, probably about $4,000. So you would think that our goal would be calculated at like 14,000 plus the 10% for Kickstarter's fees to like 15,500 or 1,600. But again, we're going to invest more money from previous sales, and we're going to use that to cover most of the press run. And then we've already, of course, got resources on hand for fulfillment. So we're going to be using a lot of our native resources to get that book produced. And then we'll turn around and profit from that in subsequent sales, as we did with issue 1 and our previous comics. So every book that we complete will actually make it a little easier by just the most minute point to get the very next project done, funded, and out into the world. But conversely, if I had $10,000 laying around, I could get the entire book done ahead of time and then go ahead and crowdfund just the printing and shipping of the book. And for that, something like a Kickstarter exclusive cover of the covers that we have, instead of putting out something that we're going to print like 5 or 6 or 7,000 of, maybe print 1,000 of them or 2,000 or 3,000 of them. And I think there's merit to that, certainly, but it's definitely one of the things that you have to juggle as a creator. Now, we've talked about the need for cash versus having it on hand, and some people have seen argued in the past, not recently, but in past years, I've seen people say, well, if you can get the book made, why crowdfund it? Well, I mean, because you still need a press run, right? You're still going to have to get awareness out about the book. And a couple of things about this. First off, funding the press run. When I say funding a press run, I am not talking about funding like a 200 copy press run. I'm talking about, hey, we need 3,000 books, or we need 5,000 books, or how many we need. Now, I am constrained by the amount of space I have in my apartment, certainly. But we've got a few thousand books in inventory between the 10 issues that 11 issues now, the 11 issues that we've released just in comics, plus the RPG books and things of that nature. Eventually, I'm going to have to get an office. I'm going to have to eventually get some office space, or finally buy a house so I have a third bedroom that's specifically my office. I'm definitely going to need that. But, first world problems, rather. Almost said third world problems. Damn, that's fucked up. First world problems, right? Getting that press run done, what that does is that enables you to get your economy of scale. Now, side effects to that. You're going to probably run a net negative if you don't have time to make those sales through your financial year. And I mean, that's fine. You'll pay your taxes and maybe you'll be a little bit behind on it, but you'll have inventory on hand to move next year. And those sales add up, man. They really, really do. We have sold literally thousands of copies of 47 Furious Tales, of Reign of Ages, of Necroholic. And Necroholic is particularly impressive to say that because most of the copies of that book go to Brian, and Brian is mostly sold out. He sold thousands of copies of that book. And he's got 3 issues of it out. So, I mean, there's a lot of Necroholic out there in the world. And then, of course, Tibby. 1 issue and thousands of books sold. And we're not even talking about when released to the mainstream comic book release. That was like 1,500, I think, something like that. We're just talking about the issues that we've sold from the Kickstarter, that the leftover books from that we sold through conventions and online sales and stuff like that. It's really, really something to see. So you can take and you can monetize that and then generate the revenue from that to fund your future projects. Now, there's a caveat to that. I myself have a full-time day job. I've been working for the Commonwealth of Kentucky since 2015. That pays my bills. Comics and everything else, that money stays in comics and role-playing games in Sinopa because my goal is a little different. I am not making a living on Sinopa. I'm building a company to leave to my kids so that hopefully one day that they, when I pass, that they get a company that they can make a living on. Or if the two of them choose to, they can sell it to someone else, whichever they prefer, right? I'll be dead. It won't matter to me. But my goals are different. So keep that in mind. I could not live, even here in Kentucky, on the revenue that we make from Sinopa in a given year. I mean, I could probably avoid being homeless, certainly, but I wouldn't be able to keep the vehicles, and I wouldn't be able to do conventions, and it would well, I mean, you have to do conventions to do sales, but there's a lot of things I wouldn't be able to do that I rather enjoy. And I certainly wouldn't be able to put as much money into projects ahead of launch. That was a huge tangent. Sorry. Anyway, getting back to that and Vicky's comment about this, and again, I think Vicky's right. If you can get the book done ahead of time, by all means do. But there's a few things I would like to point out in that. First, it's a lot easier if you're drawing the book. Okay? So, if you are the one who's drawing the comic, certainly go ahead and get the entirety of the book done before you crowdfund. Now, I understand that is kind of a difficult proposition because it entails a lot of risk. But as a writer who doesn't draw, I can tell you I take a risk with every title. And I launch the titles I believe in. And so when you look at 47 Furious Tales, Reign of Ages, Necroholic, Tibby and Her Time-Traveling Psychedelic Mushrooms, The Steel Road, Whispers of Persephone, the Tarot Adventure series, the Sinopa Omnibus, these are all titles that I have a lot of conviction in. And books I'm really proud of, right? So if you're an artist and you want to make a comic, I would take, and this is just my advice, take it for what it's worth, I would take and work on that book, get it done ahead of time, and then get yourself together for your crowdfunding. Make sure that you're promoting it well in advance. If you haven't done so already, read Madeline Holly Rossing's book on Kickstarter for the New Creator. It's definitely a crowdfunding Bible. Any creator who wants to use Kickstarter or Indiegogo or any other platform should definitely read. I actually, keep it right over there in my bookshelf. And then crowdfunding, bring your production to life. Don't expect to do $30,000, $50,000, $100,000 crowdfunding campaigns right off the bat. I've been doing this since 2017. The most I've ever crowdfunded on any project is a little over $9,000. And that was for Tibby issue 1. And that did not cover the totality of costs, right? We had a lot of money invested in that book going in. We bought huge freaking press run, 5,450 books to be precise. And we have sold books from that press run even today. I was actually going through and getting more of them out of the boxes from the printer and getting them into long boxes. And we've only got a handful of boxes left from the printer. And then some long boxes of that stuff. So I'm going to need a new cover for Reign of Age. I'm sorry, for Tibby and Her Time-Traveling Psychedelic Mushrooms issue 1 soon. And so I'm going to have to tap Damien on the shoulder to get a new one for that. Because we don't, me personally, I don't reprint Kickstarter covers, right? That's just something I don't do. For the products I own, I should say. So we don't do that for 47 Furious Tales. We don't do that for Tibby or Time Traveling Psychedelic Mushrooms. So I don't think we've even come to where we need to for the other books yet, but we'll make that call in the future. But yeah, this went a little longer than I expected, like always, I guess. But I just wanted to take and say, hey, if you're crowdfunding as a creator, fulfill your books, guys. You're not just one of several people or one of the norm. You're an outlier if you're not. Can't see with that with all that glare. You're an outlier if you're not fulfilling your campaigns. Okay, you just are. Most of the people in the comic book space, and I would say, also in the role playing game space, at least from my personal experience as a backer, and I've backed a lot of projects, are fulfilling their projects to their backers. It is the norm. So if you're approaching crowdfunding and you're not sure if you're going to be able to handle that obligation, my advice is stop, rethink things completely, and come back to crowdfunding when you know you're going to be able to fulfill. Because here's the thing. If you are coming to the crowdfunding platforms, BackerKit, Kickstarter, Indiegogo, Crowdfunder, Fund My Comic, whichever, right? Zoop and the whatever the other ones are. Although I guess Zoop isn't so much a factor in this one. If you're coming there and you're like, well, if I just get the money, I'll be okay and I'll be able to do this, and this, and this. The problem with that, guys, is the money is not yours. Your only thing you need to be using that for is the campaign. If there's anything left after that, go wild, right? But figure out your monetization for after the campaign. Now, certainly if your campaign takes off and you do $20,000 and you make $3,000 net after shipping and everything, congratulations, guys, you did a great job. Or even if you have really high margins and you make like $10,000, congratulations, but make sure you get that fulfillment done. Because crowdfunding backers, like most people, are not going to come back and support you again if you stiff them. Okay? And just like any business venture, success in using crowdfunding to get your creations out there is not a matter of one project or two projects. It's measured in decades, plural, okay? I'm about to wrap up my first decade. I am not going to be, even daring to say that we've overall been successful as a business entity until we hit 20 years. Now, have we been able to be successful in individual campaigns? Yeah, you bet. Everyone gets their stuff, and I am thrilled about that. And I hope you can be too. So it's not easy. It really isn't. Work the day job, handle your family obligations, burn the midnight oil to get your stuff done, whether you're a writer or an artist. And if you're writing and you're hiring artists, pay your artists well, and that dividend pays off for years. In fact, I'm going to tag some of the artists that I've worked with, and I'm going to ask them personally to watch this and comment to the video. Or maybe even respond to the videos so that they can get their opinions out there. I would love to hear that. So pay your people well. Even if you can't hire them often, always make a point to pay them well so that they still look at you as a valuable client, a valuable collaborator, and someone that they can do business with. And one final thought, guys, use contracts. Make sure that delivery times are spelled out. Make sure that the payment amounts are spelled out. Make sure they're drafted in compliance with your local jurisdiction requirements. And then live up to them. Don't try to get over on people you work with. That's a surefire way to get it to where no one wants to work with you. Because if you think that writers don't talk to other writers and artists don't talk to other artists in these trades, like in comic book work or in RPG work, then you are very, very wrong. Just flat out. People talk and word gets out if you're trying to dick people over. So just don't do it. Be a decent human being. Live up to your contracts. Pay your collaborators well. above all else, put out the best quality of work you know that you can and deliver it to those people who are backing your crowdfunding campaigns. And then do it again and do it better and do it again and do it better that time too. And before you know it, most of a decade has passed, and you find that you're still loving the fact that you're putting out things that you created and that other people helped you bring to print or to life in whatever way it may be. All right, that's enough of that. You guys have a wonderful day or night wherever you are, and please remember, in a world where you can choose to be anything, please choose to be kind.